So in my court, we have a contract that the parent signs and the kid signs. I sign it, the probation officer signs it. So we're all clear about what the rules are going to be. And it is a 3-phase system, and as you move up the phases, you get more privileges. But it is very intense. It's very intense for me. The days when I have restore are exhausting, because a lot of the parents have a lot of issues too, and so I'm always kind of on this tightrope to keep them engaged, hold them accountable if they're not doing their part, but not alienate them so they don't want to come back or they don't want to support their child in in the turnaround. And so I'm always kind of on the eggshells and trying to keep the peace between everybody. These are the members on the team. Before I meet with the girls and their families, we do have a staffing where I am briefed on how the previous 2 weeks have gone by the treatment providers, by the probation officer. Anybody else who might be interested is invited to come to give information. And so before I meet with the girls, I will know if they've had some sort of an incident or they've had a great couple weeks and might be entitled to some sort of an incentive. So we do have regular staffings. It is an informal setting when we do meet. I don't wear my robe. I meet and I have a small courtroom and we all sit around a big table. And so it is meant to be like in a non-threatening, kind of non-authoritative atmosphere. I have had a couple girls do something, and when they came to court, they did meet with me in my regular courtroom because I was going to detain them. And so they had to come in, and I was on the bench, and I was wearing my robe, and they were, kind of, it was unexpected, and it kind of made a big impression on them. And so, I try to use that sort of thing to make that sort of a point, but otherwise, it's kind of a relaxed atmosphere. They are able to graduate, and those that graduate do get their records sealed at no cost to them, done by the defense lawyer that's part of our team. So these are just some latest statistics that we have. I have only had one male, so if he accounts for 7%, it is 7% of one, only one person. But he was a very interesting case. He had been trafficked kind of in that more traditional conspiratorial sense. He was a victim of trafficking by the Aryan Brotherhood. He was a big, tall, red-headed, freckled kid, and he had been being trafficked from about the time he was 14. He was highly addicted to drugs. On his drug test, when we finally got him back in after running away, he tested positive for many, many different substances. He had a very poor attitude for several months, didn't want to do the Restore program, but he had a really great therapist. He was in our cryo facility, so he was locked up. Who just kept saying, this doesn't have to be your life. You can really change it. You can really change it. Why don't you just go meet with the judge? Because she's okay, and maybe you'll like her. And so finally we got the meeting, and then he agreed to come back the second time, and he ended up just doing great. And like Lisa said, he graduated from high school while he was in cryer, and he was not able to attend his graduation, so we had a graduation ceremony in my courtroom. He invited all his family. We had the cap and gown, big cake, got him some presents and everything. And he is now attending Northeast Lakeview College, and from all accounts doing well. I keep my fingers crossed that he's able to stay strong, because he has definitely been through a lot. The majority of the victims are females that we know of. I do suspect that more boys are trafficked than we know about. And he even told me that. He said, how are you going to find out? Because I know there's more boys than just me. And I said, well, I don't know. How do you think we can get them to say? And so he kind of brainstormed with me, but it is a difficult thing to admit. So this is the breakdown of ethnicity between the trafficking victims and then just the general population that we have in juvenile. So this is an interesting slide that shows the difference. The red group are just everybody that's in the juvenile probation system. So only 8% have been into placement, only 42% have actually been detained at any time, and only 60% have had any sort of previous services. But 100% of the trafficking victim have had some sort of services. 70% of them have been placed outside their home at some point of time, and 98% of them have been in the detention center. So, it's kind of it just shows you the needs that are there with that population. Now, these are the mental health indicators that we've noticed so far compared to just the general population of kids on probation. that 86% of the DMST victims have mental health needs, 84% have a diagnosis, and then 45 alert for drug and alcohol abuse, 45 for depression and anorexia, and 41% for suicide. So it is a much higher need group than the regular group. So I was just going to talk a little bit about a couple of the kind of anecdotal cases that I've had. You know, a lot of these girls have been pregnant in the past too. I mean, there's just a whole host of social issues that go along with this. But one girl that I have that she's not finished the program, but she's doing very well. She had been trafficked in Houston and Beaumont in Louisiana. She's from San Antonio, finally got her back. And she spent about 8 months in the Mission Road Center. She's very immature in spite of being able to live out on her own. And it just took a lot of time for her to kind of come around. And so in the time that I've been working in juvenile, I've really realized that sometimes you just have to wait these kids out. You can do everything for them, and they just aren't going to get it until time passes. So sometimes it's just the passage of time, I think, that makes them more ready to be receptive to what you have to offer. And that's what happened with this girl, that finally she was just in a place where her maturity level had gotten up a little bit better. She would always kind of talk baby talk to me, which I guess maybe that's what she would do when she was out on the street and had served her. And I just kept encouraging her to be different and take everybody's advice. But I was also very strict with her, and I didn't play into her game. And finally we came to an understanding, and I think it was really, I would like to attribute it to all the therapy that she's had, and I'm not saying that has not helped her, but part of it was just me lasting her out of her stubbornness and refusal to accept, and really face up to what had been going on. So that's, not just with that one client, but with lots of the clients, I find that that's a common experience. And so, when I'm out talking, making presentations like this, about half the people say, well, I hope you're locking all those little jerks up. And the other half are saying, well, I hope, you're treating them kindly, like I'm running some sort of a daycare or something. But you really, you have to come down in the middle somewhere. And so I've just really realized that, locking kids up to teach them a lesson, it doesn't really teach them a lesson that often. And so I've really tried to take a different approach, and especially with these girls. The difficulty is if you don't keep them locked up, a lot of times they are putting themselves in very, very dangerous situations. And, you got to kind of balance taking the chance against, what could really happen to them if they were face something terrible out on the street. That's really all I have to say about Restore. I would just kind of like to close by saying that I think all these specialty court models are the future. I think everybody that's working in mental health plays a very, very important role in our juvenile justice system because the mental health needs are so high. And for so many years, the juvenile justice system has really been kind of like the clearinghouse for mental health problems. The kids don't get the help until they get in trouble. And that's something that I think we just really as a community have to try to reverse. Kids don't, when they're 15, don't start hitting their teacher. They've been hitting their teacher since they were 4 years old. And, earlier intervention, working with kids that are under the age of 10, I think is important. I think expanding capacity for mental health services. I think there's lots of great mental health services that exist, but they're not available because there's too many people already in them. And so we don't have enough capacity. I have a kid who gets put on medication in detention, saw a psychiatrist. They get out, they get 2 weeks supply, but they cannot get an appointment with Center for Healthcare Services for 3 months. And so we're just always like chasing our tail on that sort of thing. So I think all of you that are kind of engaged in the mental health aspect of all these problems can really, be a voice for that and, bring it to the forefront. Make sure people know that, it's a waste of time and money to keep doing that. Yet that's what we do all the time. They're in detention, they see a psychiatrist, they get medication that they need, they're doing much better, they leave, their Medicaid is turned off or whatever, they can't get an appointment for 3 months. A month later, they're right back in for the same sort of thing. A couple new issues, though, that are coming up on the horizon there is a consideration of raising the age of juvenile to those, instead of being under the age of 17, it would be under the age of 18. I'm personally in favor of that. I think most kids that are 17 are much more like their 16 and 15-year-old counterparts than some 25-year-old guy who has been to prison 2 times already. So that is going to be discussed at this legislative session. We kind of have to do a lot of readjusting with resources between the adult and the juvenile system. But for 17-year-olds in Bexar County, you know what the #1 offense is? Possession of marijuana, just like it is for juveniles. So that's kind of where that is. The truancy realignment is a big issue. Bexar County is kind of in the lead on that with our new program that we started this year. We'll kind of see how that plays out, if other jurisdictions are going to start following our lead. And then just really cracking down on what has become known as the school to prison pipeline, that school-based offenses and being arrested at school and that sort of thing has really increased your chances of winding up in jail as an adult, as the studies have shown. But I want to thank you for all of your dedication. I know you wouldn't be here if you weren't interested in this topic. And so I want to thank you on behalf of Judge Jarrett and myself for your time and attention this afternoon. And we are more than happy to stick around and answer any questions that you have, okay? Thank you.